Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of my brand new series dedicated to all things Citrix. If you are getting up for a job in tech, looking for to sharpen your Citrix skills, or just curious about the interview process, you are in the right place. In this series, we will dive deep into the most common Citrix interview questions, share top-notch preparation tips, and help you stand out in the competitive field. With technology constantly evolving, having a solid grasp on Citrix can make all the difference. Here is a sneak peek at what's coming up in future episodes. In-depth exploration of key Citrix concepts, breakdown of real interview questions, troubleshooting and scenario-based queries covering every layer of Citrix, plus expert insight from industries, pros to help you impress in interviews. And of course, I'll be answering your burning questions along the way. If you are excited to start the journey with me, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Alright, let's jump into our first question, which is crucial for anyone preparing for a Citrix interview. Can you explain the Citrix environment? Whether you are preparing for an L1, L2, or L3 role, the question is a chance to showcase your understanding of Citrix architecture. But instead of just listing components, I'll show you how to break it down layer by layer, giving you a much deeper understanding that will impress your interviewer. Let's get started. The first layer is user layer. We will begin with the user layer. This is where everything related to the user happens. How they access the Citrix environment and what devices they use. The user layer includes Citrix Workspace. This is the interface through which user access Citrix resources. The endpoint devices. Think about the type of devices user are using to connect. It could be a PC, tablet, phone, MDM devices, or even Mac or Android devices. When answering this question, make sure you mention the various endpoint devices your user rely on. The more detail you provide about the user experience, the better. Next up, the access layer. This layer handles how user access Citrix, whether they are internal or external. Here how it works. For the internal user, typically these users will access the Citrix environment through storefront servers. And the external users, Citrix use its own Citrix gateway, also known as NetScaler ADC. If you are asked, you will need to explain how these users connect and how you manage the access for both internal and external users. In the access layer, it is crucial to touch on the load balancing setup, access policies, and whether you are using a NetScaler or another solution. If you are asked about Citrix NetScaler specifically, the safest answer is that it's managed by network team in most organizations. But if you have knowledge of how it works, you can speak confidently about it. The next layer is control layer. Now we move to control layer, which is arguably the most critical layer of the Citrix environment. This is where the delivery of application and desktop is managed. There are different components of your control layer. One is DDC, your delivery controllers. These are the heart of the control layer. They handle the distribution of resources to user. The next one is database and license servers. These also falls under the control layer. So you should be aware like what kind of database server you have, how many licenses you have, how you set up your license server, are those load balanced or not. The next component is Citrix Studio and as well as Director. These are the management consoles helping configuring and monitoring the environment. Sometimes the interviewer asks, what are the different options available in the Citrix Director and Citrix Studio? Can you monitor Citrix license users from Director? So these are some tricky questions which we will discuss in our upcoming videos. If you are using Citrix Cloud, you can skip the details of an individual component like delivery controller. Simply mention that your environment is managed by Citrix Cloud or Citrix DaaS. For on-premise environment, however, be prepared to explain the number of DDCs you have, the load balancing, how you manage upgrades and configurations, and you might even be asked what happens if your database goes down. So having a solid understanding of this is a key. The fourth layer is resource layer. This layer is all about the resources your user can access, such as application and desktop. Here's what we go. Virtual desktops are the single session or the multi-session. Applications are those the Windows apps, Linux apps, or something else you are delivering, whether those are the network drives or the URLs. Related to the publishing resources, what resources are you publishing for your user? Are those the shared apps? Are those the file shares? Apart from the generic CVA and the virtual desktops, what kind of app you are publishing to your user. Make sure to have a good grasp of what resources you are delivering and how you manage them. The next layer is compute layer, also known as hardware layer. The compute layer deals with the hardware that powers your Citrix environment. This includes hypervisor, like what kind of hypervisor you are using, whether it's a VMware, Nutanix, Hyper-V, or something else. So this is an important information which you should be aware about your environment. Whether you're using a cloud environment or the on-prem environment, are your resources hosted on on-premise or in the cloud? If you are using the cloud environment like Azure, AWS, GCP, mention that here. And make sure you are aware about the cloud connector. What kind of services run on the cloud connector? What is the load balancing method on the cloud connector? So if you are going to explain your hybrid environment or the cloud environment, you should be very much aware about your cloud connector configurations. The last one is the operation layer, which is officially not a layer in the Citrix architecture, but it's one of the important layers. Let's talk about the operation layer. So this layer covers everything related to the administrative and operational side of Citrix. Some of the components are Active Directory. So what kind of Active Directory you are using? Are you using Azure AD or the on-premise AD? Your file server. How you are managing your file server? Are you using specific file share or network drives? How you are delivering those to your users? The next component is app layering. Do you have app layering devices in your environment? Because if your environment includes app layering, be sure to mention it. If not, you can skip this part, but be aware that it could be a point of interest to the interviewer. The operation layer ties everything together, handling authentication, policies, and much more. You should deep dive into your environment to understand how your operation layer is designed in your environment. To summarize everything, what kind of Citrix environment we have in our current world? So we have three different types of environments. One is the on-premise, where your all component, your DDC, your storefront, everything is hosted within your organization. The next one is using Citrix Cloud, where everything is managed by Citrix in the cloud, specifically to the access layer and the control layer. The third one is the hybrid environment, a mix of on-premise and the cloud component, where you might have some resources hosted locally and other in the cloud. This is the most common environment which is used in current organization. Okay, let's quickly recap the layers we discussed. The first one was user layer, which explained how user access the environment and what devices they use. Second was access layer, how user authenticate and access resources, whether internal or external. Third one is control layer, how you manage the delivery of application and desktops, which contain DDCs, your studio, your director, license server, database. The fourth one is resource layer, details on what kind of resources you are available to deliver to your client. The fifth one is compute layer, the hardware and the hypervisor behind the scene, which providing the power to your environment. And the last one was the operation layer, how you handle authentication, how you handle file servers, how you handle images while the app layering, and other operation consoles. So that's the breakdown of the Citrix environment. By explaining it layer by layer, you not only give a comprehensive answer, but you also show your understanding of how each component fits into the bigger picture. If you are preparing for a Citrix interview, this structure will help you answer confidently and impress your interviewer. Let me know if you have any question or need further clarification on any of these points.